Good morning. Buenos días. Dice mañana es hermosa. Mañana hermosa. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, I'm getting better. Yeah. In any case, good morning, everybody. Oh. Yeah. Who was Charles Darwin? And why do young Earth creationists have this need to obsessively demonize the poor man? I mean, he's dead. Well, Charles Darwin was a 19th century botanist and naturalist who developed the theory of evolution by sexual selection. Although he never quite figured out how sexual selection works, he did figure out sexual selection. So there's that. But here's the thing is, Darwin was in the 19th century. I mean, he's been dead for over 130 years. But young Earth creationists insist on treating him like he just published yesterday. When in fact, he's a long since superseded figure. And he was superseded when Gregor Mendel answered Darwin's question, how does sexual selection work? And of course, Gregor Mendel is the father of genetics. Mendelian genetics answered Darwin's question. Because, yes, at the end of the day, even Darwin was, after all, just a limited human being. Oh, but to creationists, he's some sort of a Jesus analogue, a messianic figure. Or at least that's how they want us to think that we see him. Never mind that we don't, but yes, young Earthers want us to think of him as the equivalent of Jesus, which he's not. Darwin, by his own admission, developed his model of evolution by sexual selection on work done by previous naturalists and botanists, who had also asked the question, how does evolution work? And yes, as a gentleman scientist of the 19th century, Charles Darwin did have limited resources. But he did good research. And he was independently wealthy as a gentleman scientist, and so he was able to do quite a lot. And if you go over his notes, you'll find that his research was impeccable. But I hear it now. The creationists saying, oh, but he was a racist. Yes, he was. As was every 19th century Protestant Christian. He grew up in a climate of racism because he grew up in 19th century Protestant Christianity. What does this have to do with his research? And on the note of racism, it was Darwin who first posited that non-Europeans were every bit as human as Europeans at a time when the prevailing wisdom preached by clergy is that the African people were a separate species, a separate creation, and an inferior creation. That was the prevailing teaching of Christianity at the time, that Africans were inferior. And Darwin himself concluded that Africans are every bit as fully human as Europeans. There's no meaningful difference. So yeah, about that claim of racism. Yeah. Of course, I've also noticed that the people who make it generally tend to be overt white supremacists today, more than 150 years after Darwin showed that white supremacy was founded upon a mistake. So, what Darwin figured out more than 1.5 centuries ago, his detractors who call him a racist, they haven't figured that out yet. Funny how that works. Oh, but he had health problems. Yes, a lot of people did. Oh, and he disparaged himself. Yes, because as a 19th century Christian Englishman with health problems, he had been conditioned from childhood to see having health problems as a sign of weakness and inferiority. And he disparaged himself massively whenever he suffered from outbreaks of his chronic illness, because it interfered with his ability to function. It interfered with his ability to do what he loved, which was research. What does this have to do with anything? Not a damn thing. So you may want to ask yourself, if we really want to disprove evolution, should we be demonizing Darwin? Or should we be attempting to find out the mistakes in his research? I think that would be the one you need to go for. But then again, we've already moved past Darwin. As I said, in Darwin's own lifetime, Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, answered Darwin's question and brought us past Darwin. So Darwin's been superseded, and he's been superseded for well over 100 years. So if you really want to disprove evolution, it's not Darwin you need to go after. Come to think of it, it's not Mendel. Not Dostoevsky either. Oh my God, you're going to have to go after the entire corpus of research done by every biologist in the last 50 years. Especially what's been done in the last 30 years, when we have pretty much nailed down what evolution is, how it works, and we've presented this evidence. The evidence is out there. All you have to do is crack open a textbook. But of course, as a young Earth creationist, you won't do that. Instead, you will go to Darwin, and you will scan his books looking for quote mineable excerpts that you can use to try to demonize him. Because, yeah, that's all you've got. That's all you've got. Quote mining Darwin. Kind of sad and pathetic, don't you think? Yeah. Kind of sad and pathetic. But you wouldn't be young Earthers if you weren't sad and pathetic.